Welcome back, guys. Today we're reacting to Shawn Ryan and Father Dan Reehil. If you haven't heard of either of these two, I'm sure you probably have if you're watching this video. But if you haven't seen their full conversation, I highly recommend going and checking them out. I'll paste both of their channels down below in the description. And yeah, I'm really interested in diving into today's conversation because we're going to be talking a little bit about the demonic and basically how to navigate the spiritual world in our modern age. So let's dive straight into the video.
Oh no.
I mean, how did you get into exorcisms?
Well, that's interesting too. After 9/11, I moved up to Boston and I wound up staying with a priest for about 9 months, and he did deliverance ministry. In fact, the very first weekend I arrived, and I didn't know him that well, but I'm out of luck. I have no job now, and now I have no place to live because I was so close. They closed everything under Canal Street. So there was no power, there was no gas, there was no electricity. And so basically, everyone was told, go find a place to live for at least 6 months because this isn't going to be up and running anytime soon. So this priest invited me up to Boston. I said, I'll go. I go up there, and he was amazing. But he had this ministry. So my first weekend there, he has this woman in his chapel in the rectory who's slithering across the floor like a snake and foaming at the mouth, and her eyes are rolling.
Something kind of interesting to note is that exorcists still, the fact that exorcists still even exist in today's world is so cool. Like, it's not something that we think about every day as we're going throughout our natural routines. And, when we're driving to work and we're driving back home from work and we're at work and we're home and we're trying to cook supper and going through the monotony of our routines. But this guy literally does exorcisms for his career. Like, he literally will take people who are experiencing like oppression, possession, and obsession with the demonic, and he will essentially help them literally cast out demons. That's his job. So could you like imagine that for a second of like, okay, you're headed to work, but instead of going to the office, you're going to someone's home to bless it, to literally kick demons out of their house. Not only out of their house, but also of possessing their body. And so, man, you got to think that's a pretty important position that you hold, a very meaningful position actually. And it's our jobs today are so monotonous, but this is like the opposite of monotony. Like, you're going and you're dealing with the spiritual world every single day, part of your full-time job, and you just become immersed into this world because I think the more that we're a part of the world, of like the physical monotonous jobs and routines and blueprint that's kind of laid out for us in our American culture, the more we're involved in that, the less we really put a lot of attention towards the spiritual aspects of life. Whereas this is the complete opposite. And that's what I really love about Catholic culture, is that it's so embedded into a spiritual life that you really have no option but to get immersed into that just as a part of being in the church. And so I think having some type of spiritual practice is without a doubt one of the top necessities in American culture today. And the thing is like if you're not a part of a spiritual community and culture, you're going to try to get that somewhere else. And when you're trying to get that from somewhere else, you're not going to be able to fulfill the desire of your heart, which is to be in communion with God and to be in relationship with God. Because, for example, if we're really focused on our careers or our friendships or our family or, our hobbies and our interests, if we're really immersed into those worlds and we're seeking some sort of reconciliation of our soul to those things, it's always going to fall short. And we're actually seeing this in the job atmosphere today and within the business atmosphere today is there's so many people not going to church. They're trying to build their identity in where they work. And the way that you can see this is they're like clinging for principle and philosophy and core values that they can live by. They're looking for their identity in within a company versus within the church, which I think is completely flipped on its head, and that we need to be looking for our identity in the church and within the spiritual realm, and then taking that and actually applying it to the job realm, to the physical worldly realm, and not the other way around.
Back in her head, and he's doing all these prayers, and then he looks at his watch and he says, okay, I'm going to go celebrate mass. I'll be back in an hour. Just stay with her. And I'm like, what? This is my first introduction to this life.
So if you don't remember what he said that there was a lady, she was slithering on the ground like a snake. Okay, this guy's so immersed into this part of the world where this has just become normal for him now. But if you were just going throughout your day and you walked into this room and you saw someone on the floor slithering like a snake on the ground, I mean, dude, that would shift your perception of the world. You'd be like, that is not normal. And the influence of the demonic on our faith is actually so important because the demonic kind of there are these instances of demonic possession, oppression, and obsession in the world today. And when you're going about your day and you encounter that and you see that, it's like, whoa. I mean, there's something to this world that I cannot fully see or understand or even comprehend. And so it becomes obvious of like, oh, there must be a good side to that. There must be something holy. Because I see all this evil manifesting itself spiritually in the physical realm. So it's like, oh, duh. Like there must be some good. There must be good spirits. God must be real. And what's really interesting is if you read the Bible, one of the things that really deepened my faith in God and in Jesus specifically was that when Jesus was casting out demons, the demons recognized him. They knew who he was. And if the demons in the spiritual realm, who are capable of all of these supernatural things and who are extremely, vastly more intelligent than we are, and if they recognize Jesus for being the Son of God, there's something to that. And so that really deepened my faith. Surprisingly, like I never would have thought looking towards evil would deepen my presence in Jesus himself, but man, it really did. It kind of rocked me.
Leaves. She looks up at me and she's got this weird look in her eyes and she's got the foam coming out of her mouth. And I'm like, oh, hell no. And I get out of there and I lock her inside and I sat outside and waited for him to come back. When he comes back and he's like, what are you doing? What happened to the lady? I go, no, she's in there. But I'm not staying in there with her. I mean, are you crazy? You left me alone with her. And he's like, oh, okay. I sometimes forget for the people who haven't been around this, it's a little jarring. I'm like, a little jarring. Look at her. She looks like a snake. So that was my introduction initially. And then for 9 months, he would do this with people. And I got more comfortable in being in the room with him.
Like how many times in 9 months?
I think we're all kind of familiar with like when you're working at a new job and, you're kind of just starting out. Like being tossed into the fire on a new job is so uncomfortable. And they kind of do that on purpose just to kind of rock you a little bit, make you really uncomfortable. And because when we get uncomfortable, the thing is like we want comfort so bad, like we want security and stability so bad that when we get thrown into the fire like that, we just like start cranking out thoughts and processes and systems and ways of going about this new path. Our mind just starts working because we want that security really bad. And so when we get tossed into a new position and new responsibilities, it forces our brain to adapt extremely fast because we hate that feeling of like feeling uncomfortable and insecure and unstable. And so it's a really practical and effective technique for bringing new employees on, just to kind of toss them into the realm because they're going to learn so much faster. And, with you think it's hard, being in a new job and like having to sell like a phone, for example. I remember working at Verizon and having to sell phones, and they just kind of threw me into the fire and like, hey, go address this customer and figure out what he wants and try to sell him something. And it was like, geez, man, like I don't even know what's going on. I don't even know what phones we have. I don't even know what pieces of add-ons that we have for like phone protectors and screen protectors and everything like that. But it forced me to absorb that information as fast as I possibly could because I hated that feeling of like going to work and like being like, oh, I'm not really sure what this thing is. And when I'm talking to a customer, I know I need to know what that thing is. So imagine this scenario where you're becoming an exorcist and your first day on the job, you see a woman slithering on the floor and you need to somehow manage this situation by yourself. It's like, dude, what do I do? But I'm guessing in his situation, he had to learn extremely fast because he's like, dude, okay, this thing is real. This is insane. I need to figure out what's going on here. I need to figure out how to respond to this as soon as possible because if I'm going to be dealing with this all the time, yeah, I better figure this out quick.
Probably one or two a month.
1 or 2 a month?
Yep. Yeah. And then I went into religious life, and my superior was an exorcist, the Exorcist of Omaha. So now I'm in the room because they usually took the guys who were a little bit bigger to restrain the victim. And I got 5 years of that. And then when I got to Nashville, the bishop knew I was doing that for the religious community. And he says, I want you to do that here for my diocese. Can you do the deliverance? But he says, I'm not going to make you an exorcist because I feel like that's too big a burden on one priest. And I said, okay. And then he died. God rest his soul, Bishop Choby. And then the new bishop comes in, and I don't have his authority because he hasn't given it to me. So as the priests are calling me for help, I keep referring them to him. I said, he has to give me the authority. I don't do this without being under his protection. And so he finally connects and he says, why do these priests keep asking for you? I said, I was doing a deliverance for the diocese, but when Bishop Choby died, I no longer had the authority. So it's up to you. He said, are you the exorcist? I said, no. He didn't want any particular priest to be an exorcist. He thought it was too big a burden. And he says, I don't know. I kind of feel like you're fighting with your hands tied behind your back. Like, I think you should become the exorcist. So he sends me to Rome and I get trained, and then I come back and begin as the exorcist.
What does that training consist of?
It's intense. It's like,
how does it start? I mean, is there an introduction? Welcome to exorcism school?
Yeah, it was for like 2 weeks, 6 days a week, 7 in the morning to 7 at night.
What is the introduction? What do they say?
Well, this is kind of going to be the syllabus and protocol for what we're going to go into. There's probably about 6 or 7 different fields, biblical, practicums,
To kind of go down further down the path of like, okay, well, because a lot of people are questioning, right? They're like wondering and thinking throughout the day of like, is this stuff really real? Like, are demons really real? Because we, like I said earlier, we don't experience like manifestations of evil that are so obvious and blatantly true every single day. But the fact that there's this kind of stuff happening every single day, there's literally an order of people within the Catholic Church who are going and training to be exorcists. There's an exorcist school, like academy, training facility, where people go and train to cast out demons and fight against evil in the spiritual realm. I mean, this is like some Harry Potter stuff. It's kind of blowing my mind, to be honest.
The devil in Hollywood, the devil in media, the devil, Harry Potter had its own class.
Harry Potter?
Oh, yeah. So you get finished up, they pair you with a mentor who's been doing this a while, and my mentor was in Indianapolis. And so I met with him on a kind of regular basis, and he took me through some of his cases, and I watched him do actual exorcisms. And then, eventually you get your first case that you do it. And I'll never forget it. It was in Murfreesboro.
Hold on. Before we get there, how long is the school?
It's like 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
It's they put it like 2 months into 2 weeks.
Is it book work? Is it practical?
It's everything. Yeah, we actually have case studies.
It's literally like, in the Navy SEALs, they have Hell Week. So this is like the spiritual exorcist version of Hell Week in the Navy SEALs.
Of actual exorcisms that have been performed, what happened, what you should do, what you shouldn't do. That class was the best class. Don't do this. So if the victim vomits up anything, including, it could be vomit, it could be small frogs, it could be nails, do not touch them. They're cursed objects until you liberate the objects from the demons and the curses, and then you can clean them up. I'm like, I'm not touching anybody's vomit, period. I don't care if you're a demon possessed or not. Like, that's not my thing. I'd be like, can someone come in and help me clean this up? But then knowing that this could actually, you touch it and then suddenly you're covered in boils. Like, it's a whole level of care and attention.
Okay, let's take a second to just kind of process what he said there. First, he said that people throw up frogs and nails. I mean, I can't even really wrap my head fully around that. I mean, that is like straight out of a sci-fi movie. So people throw these things up, and apparently they are cursed manifestations. And if you touch them, it sounds like something as crazy as breaking out in boils can happen. Like, if that doesn't tell you that this stuff is so real and more real than we ever thought even possible, well, I don't know what to tell you.
To dealing with possessed objects.
Do they talk about how it happens?
How does one get possessed?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, of course. 100%. And the two biggest ways are dabbling in the occult and...
What does that mean?
Playing with demonic things, Ouija boards, going to a psychic, tarot cards, or actual occult worship of the devil. Those are pretty much immediate open doors that...
Okay, what he just said there might seem like it's all so like out of this world, like, oh, I'd never be involved with something like that, but something as simple as playing with a Ouija board when you were 12 and you had no idea what you were doing. Well, you kind of had an idea, like you knew the Ouija board was evil, but something as simple as that could have opened your spirit and your vessel up to these parasitic entities who latch themselves onto us and they influence our life, they influence our spiritual, they influence our spirit, and they lead us down this path of sin. So something as simple as just playing with the Ouija board when you were 12, you could have a demon latched onto you from that. Because he's saying you could open up these portals, essentially. You can interact with the physical world, and through that interaction with the physical world in a specific way, you can open up a doorway for a demon to come and interact with you, possess you. You can begin obsession or oppression. I mean, guys, we gotta step up our game. We gotta know what we're dealing with here. So I mean, not only like the Ouija boards, but even participating in regular secular music. I mean, when people are saying like, okay, Taylor Swift, there might be something here when she's acting like a witch on stage, or the Travis Scott concert where he's got this big mouth. Well, he's got a big thing of his face, and his mouth is wide open, almost like it's a portal. And you know the entire crowd is so tightly packed together. And when you watch the video of Astro World, that crazy concert that happened, and you have all these people that are tucked in tight, and they're all like, they can't even move. They're just like, it's like this crazy seance that's happening, and it's like people are purposefully being sacrificed to this big portal, this gateway to hell, in this really weird concert. It's not even a concert, it's a ritual. It's a ritual. And so when you're looking at all these comments about these music videos in Hollywood, and people are saying like, "Oh, that's clearly evil. That's clearly demonic," and people are responding like, "Oh, you're just crazy. Like this is just some 12-year-old, country music singer. Like she's not doing anything weird." Really? You don't think that that's weird? You don't think that it's weird that she's up there acting like a witch? Like I do. Like it's so just completely obvious that it's real, and that these things are happening, and that there's something deeper to these things.
You're going to have demons come right in.
Psychics are demonic.
Yeah, they're not channeling your dead relatives. So right now we have at least 3 guardian angels in the room. There's also probably demons in this room, and they're listening, and they hear every bit of what we're saying. Excuse me. And when somebody says, well, the psychic told me my mother shared this with me when I was 10, and nobody ever knew that but us. So it has to be my mom, except for the demons in the room who also heard it. And now they're impersonating your mother. If your mother's in heaven, she's having a good day. She doesn't want to come back and visit you, as much as mothers love their children. If she's in purgatory, she needs our prayers to get her moved into heaven. And if she's in hell, there's no getting out. It's not your mother.
Wow.
So he said a lot there. I mean, first is that, okay, there's actual spirits, surrounding us right now, right where you're at, watching from wherever you are. There's spirits in your room. There's angels. There's demons. And these entities have basically been observing us, watching our behavior, listening to what we say, listening to our interactions with other people. I mean, first of all, wow, it's incredibly weird. It's not something that we talk about all the time. But then he also goes on to say, okay, when psychics are telling your future, or they're communicating something to you that they couldn't have known, that they're actually consulting with demons and evil spirits. Okay. So even if you've gone to a psychic, you've basically interacted with a demonic presence. And so, I mean, first of all, it's extremely weird. that there's spirits surrounding us. It's even more weird that there's evil spirits surrounding us. So what should we do, one, to defend ourselves from those evil spirits? Well, we probably shouldn't be playing with Ouija boards. We probably shouldn't be listening to music that is fostering those spirits, that is channeling those spirits, because that'll open up a portal. We probably shouldn't be watching movies that open up portals to those spirits. And we should probably carry something that defends us. We should probably protect ourselves spiritually so that we can have and stand a chance against these spirits. Like, how are you going to fight something that is like way more powerful than you if you don't have a force that is more powerful than those spirits? And it's like, yes, a rosary works. Like, the name of Jesus works. Mother Mary works. Demons flee from Mother Mary. And we know this because exorcists literally use rosaries and they use holy water. And so by having these tools of defense, we can actually go about our day and not be as impacted by demonic influences. Therefore, we can be more spiritually healthy. And when we're more spiritually healthy, we're more mentally healthy, we're more physically healthy. That doesn't mean that we don't experience stress or challenge in life. But when we optimize our performance around our spiritual performance, our physical and mental performance, we can have a much better chance at overcoming those challenges and obstacles in our life, which is so, so important.
They can put up a good show, and it's very, they can also place thoughts in our minds, and they can manipulate our emotions. And when you...
Okay, so listen to what he said there. Demons can place thoughts in our minds. That means that everything that goes on in here isn't us. Some of it is. Some of the thoughts that we have are brought up by us, they're thought by us. But demons can place thoughts in our mind as well. They can place thoughts in our mind. Okay, so while you're going throughout your day and you're just listening to your internal monologue, and your internal monologue tells you, oh, look at that girl. She's like, look at her features. And what if that's a demon placing those thoughts in your mind so that you start obsessing over this girl and lusting over this girl? It turns out it wasn't even you. It was the demon that planted that thought there, and then you basically accepted it. You're like, okay, yeah, let's do that. So the demon planted the thought, and then you took it and ran with it. He basically handed you the football, and you took it and scored a touchdown. But in this case, it's not positive. It's not a good thing. So that's important to know, because our mind is like a mental landscape. Some of the thoughts that we have are ours, they're us, but some of the thoughts are from completely different sources. Some can be evil spirits, some can be angels, some can be from God. And so we have to understand the landscape so that we can know how to navigate, so we can know how to find our path. Because if we don't know the landscape, then we're not going to be able to travel throughout the landscape to find our destination. So that by understanding, okay, these thoughts, they might not be yours. So what do you do about that? Well, you can consult an exorcist like Father Dan here, and he can help you sort those things out. Because when a demonic entity latches onto you when you open up a portal, they can create a lot of thoughts throughout your day. And so if you feel like your mind is just against you, it's attacking you, it's very possible that you could be experiencing demonic possession, obsession, or oppression. Now, it could just be from you and from having poor habits and maybe poor routines when it comes to your mental, physical, and spiritual health. But there is that possibility that you could be being heavily influenced by a demon. And that's kind of what Father Dan is saying here.
Have that trifecta, the person is 100% believes it's their mother.
Interesting. And so how would, so if you're a psychic and I'm getting a reading from you, how does the transmission happen?
Well, they're in touch with a demon they may even think it really is a relative, but I think most of them know that there's a power they're tapping into that is dark, and they're not going to share that with you. In fact, some of them will put Christian statues in the room, Sacred Heart is over here, Our Lady of Fatima is over here, just to like lower the anxiety level of the person coming in. Because a lot of people have heard it's really not a good thing, but they get desperate. When people are desperate or in fear, they do things they wouldn't normally do. So like after the Civil War, these charlatans came up with these talking boards that they were going around and visiting all the widows, saying, I can contact your dead husband, the soldier who died. If you, can pay me this amount, we can do it with this talking board. And they made a lot of money off of these poor widows. And then that eventually became what was being known as the Ouija board, which was bought by Hasbro, toy company. And they're based in Salem, Massachusetts, the capital of witchcraft. And they have consultants who went into the development of these boards that became Ouija boards, and that they are the first to say that they asked the board what its name is, and it said Ouija, which means nothing. And the first year they went to market, the number one board game was Monopoly, and that year Ouija boards outsold Monopoly by 1 million boards. So it was embraced by the culture, like fast. And it's opening a portal right into hell.
Interesting. How else can the transmission happen?
No matter where you're watching, Shawn.
Yeah, I mean, he pretty much covered it all there. It opens a portal straight to hell. And what is hell associated with? Evil. And when we're being heavily influenced by evil spirits, it leads us down a slippery slope of sin, of doing things that we don't really know why we're doing them, but we do them anyways. And we're essentially being attacked by parasitic influences of evil spirits, of demonic spirits who lash themselves onto us. And through that latching on, they start to plant thoughts, ideas, and things into our head, which cause us to then act on those things. And when we act on those things, we start to experience certain emotions like guilt or shame or anger and frustration. And through that constant cycle of thought planted, action taken, emotion experienced, they keep us in a never-ending loop and spiral of downward spiral of sin. And being reconciled to God and coming into communion with God is how we battle that. It's the only way to battle that, because this force is so powerful, it's beyond our comprehension. So the only way that we can stand a chance at battling that is by having faith in something much bigger that can actually battle that force and win and have victory over that force. And you hear it all the time, like, in the end, Jesus wins. God wins. He defeats evil. And that story is playing itself out every single second of every single day. And so yeah, it's an interesting area to dive into of spiritual warfare, battling against the demonic, battling against evil spirits. We're at war. You know, the US is relatively peaceful, probably more peaceful than most countries, but we're still at war with these demonic spirits, and we will be until Jesus comes again and completely wipes out the evil forces.